Oh, they turned it down, maybe? How come I can't find anything?
My concern is the drug, drug interactions. These are drugs being developed by people who perhaps only eat food with them. What about the people who take multiple kinds of
This
drugs?
is FM.
And what about the use of these at different ages? Certainly, some people could be more prone to having reactions which I don't see how they could possibly.
No commercials.
Commercial free.
Just the hits.
Going non-stop, yeah.
This is WIFC.
Just a young gun with the quick fuse. I was hooked high, wanting to lose. I was dreaming of bigger things.
The ballot in more states than not that is actually considering this guy as his running mate.
You know, we haven't talked about that part of it because we're not a political show. At some point,
He's not going to become a political show.
but I'm saying that the people that are knowledgeable about politics and expert in that professionally, I wonder what they're saying about the decision making.
I wonder what Fox and Friends is talking about. Funny thing,
some of the activity at the psilocybin. So we don't really know the effects of all the drug interactions, but from in general, we do not think that that's going to be a big problem. I think it's going to be more the other psychoactive drugs, the antidepressants, and anti-anxiety agents that they might be on. That we need to tease out yet.
David, when you...
Oh, they set my clock. Or some... It's 8:56. It says 8:55 on my clock.
Yeah, they do on a
They might have set it for me.
And I think there's in terms of drug accessibility.
That was wrong for so long. They probably figured
interaction between patents.
They probably were tired of looking at it.
Process and reimbursement.
We also had a time change too.
Governments and insurance companies. Generally, a company that wants to go through the FDA process is going to try to get a patent because the patent helps them raise funds necessary over the very high cost of that process. So typically, what you see coming through the FDA are oftentimes patented drugs rather than unpatented drugs. And essentially that limits public access through the FDA to those things that are patented, which may or may not be the best or least expensive options.
Patent attorney David Kazimer with us, co-founder of Cortes Sophia, that's a nonprofit library of information on psychedelic substances. Paul Hudson with us, director of the UW-Madison Transdisciplinary Center for Research in Psychoactive Substances. Fielding your questions and comments, 800-642-1234. David, in January, Oregon legalized the use of hallucinogenic mushrooms. How will the decriminalization or the legalization of psychedelics, how will that affect therapies going forward?
It's a really interesting question, and it falls into that complicated issue I just raised. Because there's the issue of sort of decriminalization, and then there's a separate issue of sort of legalization and sort of regulatory approval and payer approval. You can have something that might be legal, say the use of mushrooms to access psilocybin, but you might then also have a regime where any commercial uses of psilocybin, from an FDA standpoint, might need to be going through pure psilocybin through particular clinics that are certified, and that may end up influencing essentially general accessibility. People will either have to use things at home, sort of legally in a decriminalized situation, but not the clinically ideal situation, or go through the clinical route, which will be highly regulated and almost certainly more expensive.
And Paul, you see the clinical route as truly beneficial for potential patients.
Yes, but to come off of David's comment, home therapy may be possible, but again, I think that that's going to need to be incorporated with preparation and possibly the therapists are there at the subject's home, as opposed to having to come into a clinic. So how we actually administer this setting, the preparation, and when we do that is still something we haven't optimized. We were going to get it across the finish line now, I think, with the way that we're doing it now, but it's not necessarily the best way to do it or the most accessible way to do it.
Paul, in our last 30 seconds left. What advances in psychedelic research are you watching for next?
Well, we're getting much better understanding of how the drug might be working from a biochemical standpoint. There are people that feel that it's a more spiritual experience, but we also are finding some really interesting things, including that we may not get the psychedelic experience at all to have some regeneration of some brain repair. And so David Olson at UC Davis is doing some really good work, and there's a lot of interest in non-psychedelic psychedelics.
We're watching that. Paul and David, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Kate.
Paul Hudson, professor of the UW-Madison School of Chemistry, director of Transporters and Research in Psychoactive Substances. David Casimir, patent attorney, co-founder of Cortis Sophia, that's a Madison-based nonprofit library of information on psychedelic substances. I'm Kate Archer Kent. You're listening to The Morning Show on the Network.
Not coming in real good. We're in the hills too here. It's 9 o'clock. So we're at 44.2 miles at 9 o'clock.
The Morning Show is produced by Courtney Everett, Trevor Cook, Mackenzie Crummy, Joel Patna, Royce Podeswa, Avery Rogers, and Joe Todd. Our technical director is Lee Rayburn. Keegan Kyle is executive producer. I'm Kate Archer Kent. Stay tuned next for 1A on the Ideas Network.
Here's our exit. This is where we start.
89.1 WHAA Adams, the Ideas Network of Wisconsin.
We're going
Public
away
Radio.
from Adams.
Listen online at WPR.org.
We're going to lose this station soon.
It's a central question that's top of mind for voters, the campaigns, and the candidates. But why do we care about the age of our politicians? From WAMU and NPR in Washington, this is 1A.
The age of our politicians.
Hi, I'm Jen White. On Tuesday night, Joe Biden and Donald Trump gave the delegates they needed to clinch their party's nominations for president. The general election is now underway. For months, polling has shown voters aren't thinking about the ages of the two candidates. But what concerns do voters specifically have when they say a candidate is too old? And what should Biden and Trump do to alleviate concerns that their age is a hindrance to being an effective president for another term? And now let's hear about your age and how it's affecting your vote selection. Email us at 1A@WAMU.org.
Okay, we're at 46.1 miles.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm
9:02.
Louise Giovanni. President Biden and former President Trump now have enough delegates